Hello, everyone. Good morning. How are you? I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I want to cover the topic of handling unrealistic expectations at work. One of the biggest reasons I have people come in a flurry, wanting their resumes updated, LinkedIn, all of the career documents done, or coming for coaching on how to handle situations. One of the biggest reasons I have people come is because they're going through frustration at work. They feel that some of the expectations of their bosses is unrealistic. So it has them walk around in a huff and a puff and a flurry, and they're frustrated and feel like they aren't being treated fairly. So what tends to happen is the person goes, I need my resume updated right now, and I'm going to tell my boss to shove it. I've had it. They don't understand me. They're overloading me. And, how do I cope with this? Or in fact, they don't even ask the question about how do I cope with this? They just want to make very rash decisions about running out of the door. So here's a couple of things I want to say about that. First of all, don't make any rash decisions, especially in the current job market. We all know we're in challenging times. COVID has created some challenging times. There's global financial crisis going on, lots of economic downturns and all those kind of things happening. So the job market is tight. And so you don't want to make a rash decision and put yourself into a situation where you end up more stressed. So often when you're going through that unrealistic expectation thing at work, you can feel really anxious and stressed. Running out of the door when you haven't thought something through or haven't taken proper steps and action plans can lead to more stress. So here's some things I want to encourage you to consider when you feel that expectations at work is unrealistic. First thing to do is check your own insecurity. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you can make the assumption that unrealistic expectations are being set by your boss and that it's unfair. But if you have a really good boss, really good manager, often they will set some expectations that will push you out of a comfort zone. And what that's all about is actually growing your skills. So when we get so comfortable doing what we do, and you can pretty much do it in your sleep, what can tend to happen is that your skills could become stale. So a good manager, a good boss is going to know what you're skilled at, and is going to be in that mindset of wanting to grow your skills. And so that means sometimes they're going to give you some extra tasks. Also remember, your bosses are managing more than just you. They're managing other people as well. And so sometimes they may not always be across everything on your plate. So don't make rash decisions. Check your own insecurity first, because here's one of the things I've seen often. When I was hiring in corporate, when I was working for GMs and CEOs and all of those things, and even now as a career coach, I see this often. People have emotional residue left from previous experiences. So you may have been bullied in another role. You may even have had a personal situation in life where there was a lot of unrealistic expectations set. So what you do is you're carrying some of that baggage with you. And so when something occurs at your current place of work, you feel that the boss is setting unrealistic expectations, they're overloading you, you can have an automatic reaction to that based on the experiences from the past that in fact may not be true about what's going on now in the present. So that's why my first point is to encourage you to really check your reaction and make sure that you're not reacting from the past or that you're not reacting from your own insecurity. The second thing I advise people to do is to talk to your colleagues. Seek some guidance and support. Approach colleagues with the idea of, how do you handle the situation when you feel like you've got a lot on your plate? Because here's the thing that's going to happen, that's going to come out of that kind of discussion. Don't go to your colleagues and go, oh, what do you think of Mr. So-and-so, he's or Mrs. So-and-so, our boss is just setting so much expectations and, they've got me overloaded with work and I don't think it's fair. Don't approach it from that space. Approach it from curiosity and say, I'm kind of overloaded at the moment. What do you do when you feel overloaded? Because approaching that discussion is going to allow the colleague to open up and say, this is what I do. You're also going to find that if it is indeed a behavior of the boss, and the boss is the type of person to deliberately overload their people, and their intention isn't about growing the person's skills, it's just about adding more and more work to the person's plate, that is going to come out in the conversation. And you're going to be able to deduce very quickly if it's just you that's been overloaded, if others are being overloaded, and what the general feel is about that. So those are things that I want you to think about. Approach the colleagues, ask the question, be curious, be gentle, and ask them how they handle situations. It will inevitably lead to some insight around whether they're being overloaded as well, and subsequently, what kind of boss you're really dealing with. The third thing I want you to consider is to create a list of everything that's on your plate and the corresponding deadlines. So make your list of what you have on your plate, on your work task plate, and the corresponding deadlines. Because what you want to do now is get prepared for the discussion with your boss. It is disempowering to continue to go forward thinking someone is out to get you rather than having a discussion. So I always encourage my clients, and I certainly encourage people when people would come to me and complain about other bosses or they felt comfortable talking to me about things, I would encourage them to set up a meeting with their boss. So you need to be mindful of what you perceive as truth until you've actually had the discussion and given your boss the opportunity to explain their reasoning, their motives, their whys, their wherefores. And then obviously the next thing to do is to set up that meeting and go in there, taking a few deep breaths, be quietly confident. You don't want to be arrogant and aggressive. You don't want to be accusatory. And go in there with the idea of seeking guidance and support and clarification. So ask your boss, what the expectations are. Share with your boss the list that you've made and the corresponding deadlines of the tasks that you already have, and ask that boss to help you prioritize those tasks. Because you may find that the boss will look at the list and go, oh, no, that's not urgent. I'd like you to focus here, here, and here. And then suddenly you're not so overloaded as you think you are, because some of the other tasks may not be priorities at that point in time. Always important to give someone an opportunity to explain their reasoning. You're also going to pick up the vibe from the boss pretty quickly. If you have someone who is simply mean-spirited and likes really flogging the horses on the team, just flogging people with work, you're going to know that pretty quickly. They aren't going to be responsive. They aren't going to be open to guiding you. They aren't going to be open to clarifying things for you. But if you have a boss who sits down, clarifies, and encourages you to continue to come to them when you need guidance. And here's the other thing I want you to do is I want you to then request, if you have the type of boss that's responsive, request a regular one-on-one meeting with your boss. Set that up. You take the initiative, set that up, and have the boss meet you for a regular one-on-one. It can be weekly, it can be fortnightly. I wouldn't say go monthly. Monthly is too long. Maybe fortnightly or every 3 weeks, and ask them to go through your progress with you, because you don't want to get to a performance review once a year and suddenly be surprised by feedback. So take the initiative especially when you're feeling like you're overloaded or there's unrealistic expectations, and start having regular progress meetings. Bring your challenges to those meetings and ask, approach your boss saying, I know I'm going to encounter challenges. That's just what working life is about. But I'd like to know that you have an open door policy where I can come discuss my challenges with you and can seek your guidance, support, and mentorship around dealing with those. It's about having empowering conversations. Always ask what the priorities are and get the boss to clarify that and then go from there. Obviously, if you establish through the conversation that the boss is closed, not open, and is going to continue to flog you with more tasks, well, then it's time to consider, other things, perhaps looking at even approaching HR for some guidance and support, or, that may well be the time when it comes, that may well be the time for you to consider moving on. So in conclusion, there's a couple of things I always encourage people to do is to ask simple questions. Be curious with your questions, but also be curious with your questions within yourself. So ask yourself, when you encounter these difficult situations, is my perception of this situation true or not? And if you immediately say yes, the second question to ask is, what evidence do I have that can confirm that perception? And here's the thing to remember, you have no concrete evidence until you've had the conversation with your boss. If you haven't given the boss the opportunity to explain or to guide or to share their point of view of why there's suddenly all these tasks on your plate, then you have no concrete evidence that the boss is in fact out to get you. So be mindful of how you approach and ask those two key questions of yourself, and then set about having that conversation to try and get clarification around what you might perceive as unrealistic expectations. That's the powerful way to approach it. And as I said, really important to go through that exercise and to think about it before you make any rash decisions. You don't want to put yourself under stress by making a rash decision to leave and entering a market that is currently quite tight, right? You don't want to add to your stress. And besides, why wouldn't you give someone the opportunity to guide, help you, and listen to you before you make a rash decision? So that's my tips on how to deal with unrealistic expectations in the workplace, or your perception of unrealistic expectations in the workplace. I hope it helps, and I wish you a wonderful, happy day.